Alright, so there are a few more steps that we need to perform before we go back to ZBrush. So now that we have the base mesh pretty much blocked out, we need to go in here and specify some material IDs. The reason I'm going to do that is because this will work in your favor when you go back into ZBrush. So let's say I want to reproject the detail back from the high poly to this low poly mesh I just made. If I were to do that as is, it would destroy this mouth cavity here. And the reason being is this was not originally part of the base sculpt, so it won't know how to handle the reprojection of this. So what I'm going to do is separate this my material ID, which translates into polygroups into ZBrush. So when I go back into ZBrush, I can isolate this so this is not affected by the reprojection. So that's what you kind of want to do. And I'm also going to do that with the nose and probably the eye cavity. Well, these cavities don't matter too much because these were actually a part of the original scope. But the mouth cavity, that definitely is going to matter. I might even go in and add some more geometry around the mouth just so the mouth is a little bit more smooth. Now, since I made perfect edge loops, it's easy just to drop another edge loop in here. So going to Swift Loop, see, I can easily drop another edge loop in here and it won't affect anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just so there's more definition on the lip. And the way I did that, let me undo that. I went to Swift Loop, hold Shift, and it's going to snap to the center of your lines perpendicular to it. And it's going to complete this curvature here. So if I actually go up here, you'll see the information, the tool information here. When you hold Shift, it clicks to insert an edge loop and adjust the new loop to the flow of the surrounding surface. Is exactly what it's doing. So again, this is where you want to go in and make some minor touch-ups before you finalize the model and make sure your center line is actually completely centered. Now, I've already done this in a previous video. So again, the mouth cavity doesn't need to be super detailed because it's not going to be, you're not going to pay too much attention to this because this is not going to be a focus um, when you're animating or modeling, or even when you're texturing. It's not really a focus. So anything past the front part of the lip, you can just leave low poly. You can get away with this. But for now, we do need to select everything in here and specify a different smoothing group. So right now, I still have this in my selection from the previous video. I'm just going to grow this one more. So it looks like I have everything on the inside of these lips. And I'm going to set my material ID to 2. I'm going to invert my selection by hitting Control I and making sure this is set to 1. It is. If it's not, you can just kind of wiggle this up and down on the spinner. Make sure it's at 1. And I'm actually going to make this a different smoothing group as well. Well, not smoothing group, but a different material ID. Sorry. I'm going to grow this. So this is going to be the inner eye cavity. I'm going to set this to 3. I think I'm actually going to drop another edge loop in here around the eyes. Just so when I go back into ZBrush, I have a little bit more to play with for definition wise. Doesn't hurt to add extra edge loops in there. Alright, let's see what else we can do. Um, Looks about right. We don't really need to specify any other material IDs at this point because everything else is going to be easier to work with. I might actually go in here and make the ear its own material ID. And the reason for that is it'll just make it easier for selecting purposes. Let's see, I'll go in here. I'll just select this whole edge loop here, and I'll just start to grow this. See if it's going to let me do what I want to do. Ha! That totally worked. So all I did was I hit grow and I hit shrink a few times. I hit grow until it actually selected everything on the ear because I want to separate this. The reason I want to separate this is when I go back into ZBrush, I'm going to separate this and I'm going to work on the ear independent of the head. So if I want to make minor adjustments on this, it'll make it easier if it's a different poly group because I can hide it. So I'm going to set that to 4. That'll work. So let's actually take a look at these poly groups. I'm going to load up my slate material editor and I'm just going to drop some preset material IDs in here. Right now I have my material library set up in here, so all I have to do is drag and drop this, and you can see in here that I have multiple color IDs. So I have the RGB and I have about 9 different colors in here, and this is going to be super useful when we start painting, when you start making your ID mask. So I'm going to drop this right on here. You can see that I have my color coded everything. So the mouth cavity is green, the inner eyes are red, and the ears are yellow, and then everything else is going to be blue. So I have my model separated by material ID. So we're going to leave that for now, and I'm going to go back to object color. So now we have that set up. I'm going to check one more time because, you know, OCD, to make sure that my center line is actually centered. So double clicking on that line, convert my selection to vertex mode by holding control and selecting vertex, verifying that it is selecting everything. Go to my modeling tab for the graphic modeling tool, hit X to align it on the X, and then go down here to your reference coordinate system, type in, and I'm going to right click on the spinner to make sure it's 0. So with that done, we're pretty much ready to import this back into ZBrush. Now, I do have some other pieces in here that I did not retop, and there's a reason for that. So this big bulb here, I'm actually going to retop this inside of ZBrush because I don't care how the topology flows for this, because this is a secondary type of mesh, and it doesn't matter to me how the edges actually flow. So I'm going to do this with ZBrush instead. And the reason I didn't do it with this is because when you use Z-Remesher inside of ZBrush, you can sort of direct your edge flow, but it's all based on a computer algorithm, and it's okay. It's not great, and I have a very specific way I want my edges to flow. So I like to personally draw out my edges for the body mesh. But for something like this, I don't really care how that flows because this is a secondary type of mesh for me. So the purpose of the little jelly bulb here is what I'm going to do with this is it's going to squash and stretch, and I might even rig this sort of so it moves slightly, but it's not going to move in such a intricate manner that the edge flow is going to affect. The edge flow is never going to affect this. So I'm going to retop this in ZBrush. The eyes, they are already low poly, so I'm just going to leave as is because I originally made these inside of Max, and then I ported them into ZBrush, and then I retextured. Well, these inside of ZBrush, they won't matter because I will use the same eyes, and we'll retexture that later. And you're probably wondering, what about the mouth? I already have a base mesh for the mouth that I'm gonna use because the mouth is it's not gonna be seen as much on this model because mostly you're gonna see the model like this. And the character may open their mouth slightly, but the teeth aren't going to be a focus. So I'm not going to focus on that part of the body. I'll leave that for a different time. But for now, I'm going to put this right back in the ZBrush. So let me get my taskbar again right here. Going to load up ZBrush because we're going to go Z this right back in there. And I want to make sure that I have my palette set up correctly. All right, so let's go find my project. All right, so now we have a place to start from. So I'm going to import the mesh back on here, and we're going to we're going to reproject the face and the body back onto this. So I might do this one of two ways. Remember how I collapsed the head onto the body? I may or may not want to do that for this case because these are two different Dynamesh resolutions. So if I, right now I'm selecting on the head. Right now you can see it's a Dynamesh resolution of 128. If you're wondering why my Dynamesh is up here, it's because I customized my interface and I manually moved it here. Just so it's easier, so I don't have to go through menus just to get to my Dynamesh. As you can see, if I go through the menu here, go to Dynamesh, it's at 128 resolution. If I go to the body, you see that it's a resolution of 32. Crazy, huh? So what I can do actually is I can collapse it down, but if I don't redo the Dynamesh, it won't really affect it. It should stay the same resolution. So I might actually put the head underneath and merge the body down onto the head since the head is the higher resolution, so it'll take priority. So let's try that first. So if I look at my layer stack, you can see my head is above the body. Let's rearrange that. I'm just going to move the head down, select the body, and I'm going to go to merge, and I'm going to merge down. Hit OK. So now the head and the body are one. And you see it didn't change the resolution of the body, and that's what I want. I'm not going to remesh this. I'm actually going to leave it as is. So this is going to work out great for when we do our retop. So now I need to bring my retop in. And we don't need to see these items. These are just going to be in the way of the retop. Let's go back to Max. I'm going to select this mesh. I'm going to collapse two. So now it's all one piece. It's name body retop. Now I'm going to go Z this. And of course, it's going to make a separate subtool. So I'll need to insert it into this subtool. And I'm just going to rename this to high poly sculpt. So now I know what that is. And when I go down here to, you can either do append or insert. They really do the same damn thing. So I'm just going to go to append because I'm used to using that. And I'm going to append this body retop. So now that this is in here, you can see it put it on the bottom. I'm going to select it and I'm going to move this up so that the retop is at the very top. So now the second thing we need to do, I'm going to just turn this to solo so all we see is the retop. We need to subdivide this a few times. So going into the geometry, I'm just going to hit divide a few times, maybe about 5. I don't really want to go above 5 for now. Um, as we have a good base to start from, you can see everything's really smoothed out, but there's pretty much no detail on this. It looks like there's enough definition in here so we can do our reprojection on. Let's see, we're not even at 1,000,000 polys yet, so we're just under 1,000,000. So this is good. So remember when I was saying I put in a material ID so we can separate these. So if I turn on polyframe, you can kind of see that carried over. So what I want to do is I'm just going to control shift and select the body. So you see how it hides everything else. That's kind of what I want. But I actually want to get the eye cavity and the ear back. So I'm going to do the same thing again. So it hides that. I'm going to select the ear as well, hides that. Select the eye cavity, hides that. So really the only thing I really wanted to isolate was the mouth cavity. So I'm going to control and click outside of it so it masks this. And then I'm going to control shift click so it brings back everything. So now the inner mouth cavity is masked off, so this will not be affected by the reprojection. So if I turn off polyframe, you can sort of see this. The mouth cavity is masked off. You can see the line where the mask stops here. So I wanted to perform just like that. So now that we have that blocked off, I'm going to go back into Subtool and I'm going to go into Project. And I'm not even going to change any of these values. I'm just going to hit Project All and see what happens. You can see this will start to work. Projection in progress. And we'll see how this turns out. Now, it's not going to be perfect, which is why I didn't spend a lot of time reprojecting everything, uh, the detail back on. Now you can see we have a few glitches here and there, and that's okay. Like this didn't come through, and you can clearly see this is having some issues here. This is why I want to mask off the mouth cavity. So it looks like we're going to need to increase the size of the mask or blur some of this off. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm just going to take my brush and make sure I have symmetry on. I'm just going to mask off some more of this because we can always go back and manually fix this ourselves. See, I knew this part of the mouth was going to give us problems because this is where that mouth cavity is. Because there's a hole here, it doesn't know how to compute those points. So I'm just going to mask this off a little bit better, like so. And I'm going to soften the mask by holding control and just clicking on the mask to soften it a bit. And we're going to do that again, project all. Gotta calculate. This doesn't really take that long because my mesh isn't that detailed. All right, so that looks like it came out a little bit better. Now you can see that there's like uh, some weird issues going around here on the lip, and that's fine. Now, one thing we can do is we can use morph target to kind of erase this. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to undo this, and I'm going to go see if I can find it, morph target, and I'm going to hit store morph target, and I'm going to reproject this again. So going back to subtool and project all, it's going to redo the operation. Give it a few seconds. Compared to other meshes I reprojected, this is not taking long at all. Okay, so that's done. So why did I use the morph target? I use the morph target because I can use the morph brush to sort of remove this bulge that's going around the lip. So it looks weird. So I'm actually going to turn off my mask by dragging, and I'm going to use my morph brush. So what the morph brush is going to do is it's going to blend back to that original shape that I had before I reprojected. So it's going to help blend some of these edges back in. Now I can take the trim dynamic brush and just kind of trim this out, or I can morph it back to the shape that it was. So I'm going to undo that a few times, just kind of showing you that that's an option. So instead of me doing that, I'm actually going to drop in some clay buildup. And I actually want to isolate just the mouth. So what I'm going to do is select the mouth cavity. And with this, I'm going to grow my selection. So going to visibility, and I'm just going to hit grow a few times. You can see it's growing my selection back, so I'm getting that mouth. Because I just kind of want to see just the mouth area. And I'm going to stop my grow when it gets to maybe where they're around the top and bottom of the lip. So this is pretty much all I want to see in my selection right now, because I only want to affect this area. So this is a good area to start from. So let's go in here, and I'm going to use trim dynamic and smooth, so I can smooth this out. Now you can see that the smooth isn't actually affecting this too much. So the beauty of having subdivision levels is I can go down a level and use the smooth again, and it's more apparent. See, the smooth is working a lot better. Go up a subdivision level, smooth it again. Like so. Go up one more, smooth it again. So this is just one of those things that you'll You'll have to do, it depends on how your mesh is set up and where your cavities are. If you don't have cavities to begin with, you might have to go and just do some minor touch-ups here and there. See, by the time I get to my highest subdivision level, this is much easier to blend back out. So like so. All right, so this looks like this will work out a lot better. Now it looks like I need to do a general smooth over most of my mesh because the original Dynamesh body was not very smooth at all, and it left some faceted sort of shapes everywhere, and it's not too smooth, so we can go through and fix that. So I'm just gonna unhide my selection now, and now the lips are looking a lot better. Now I can go through in here and I'm gonna add some more detail, but I've basically have the shape of my lips done, and I have a mouth cavity now. So now I can go back in here and sort of just smooth some of this out so it gets rid of some of that faceting. Because now my current mesh is at a higher detail level than the body Dynamesh was. So of course, a lot of that detail wasn't going to come in. Now you can see I have this little glitch back here. I'm just going to smooth that out. So again, I'm going to go down to a lower subdivision level, fix it there. Go up, smooth it out. Go up again and smooth it out. So now that's gone. And you'll have to go over your model and just kind of go verify that everything came over like you want it. So it looks like the hands definitely need some TLC because they're really faceted. But everything else looks like it came out okay. So this is pretty much the stage where I'm going to go in and pretty much smooth out most of my mesh and add in some detail that wasn't there to begin with. Because like I said, I didn't make my original scope too detailed. I didn't want to go too detailed with it. So this is where I'm going to go in and fix a lot of things that I didn't in the original scope. So this is another thing that bothers me here. The end of the jaw should be over here. This is too far back, so I can always go back and fix this. Because I have a really low poly mesh, I can go into the first subdivision, take the Damien standard brush. I can just sort of cut in where I want that jawline to be. You can see this is being pushed in. That's what I want. I'm just going to smooth that out so it transitions better. Go up a subdivision level. You see I'm starting to get that jaw smooth in there, like so. Go up one more. Just kind of smooth that out. Go up again. So you see, starting from a lower subdivision levels, it really helps your making adjustments in your scope. You can see all up in here, this definitely needs to be smoothed out. Like so. All right, at my highest subdivision level, and just smooth that right out. All right, so that's already looking a lot better. And of course, I can do a little bit more work to it, but for the most part, it's how I want it. So I am going to go back through this and make some more adjustments and fix some of uh, these little smoothing issues here. I just need to go and overall just smooth everything. Now I could use the smooth function in under deform. So you can use this if I want to just smooth the whole thing all at once. So this will be a much faster way of doing that. You can sort of see that it really went over the object and it really smoothed out a lot of that detail. So this saves me the trouble of actually just going to every part and manually doing it. So I only did it a few times because I'm actually going to go back and retouch up on everything anyway. But I just want a general smooth to go back over the surface. And of course, I'm going to fix this mouth area as well, because it looks like I can pull the inside of the lip inward a little bit, which I'll do. And the corner of the mouth needs to taper off a bit more because it's not coming to a point like I need it to. It needs to crease right here. It looks like the nasal cavity and the eye cavity came out pretty good. Even the ear cavity in here, that came out pretty good. So if I wanted to go and isolate the ears, you see how easy that is? Because it's its own polygroup. So I can go and isolate the ears and fix a few things I want. So that's why I made that its own polygroup. But everything else looks to be like it came over pretty nicely. So what about the rest of the items? Let's use Z remesher on that. So I'm going to save my progress and I'm going to save this as step 5. So let's go back to my subtool. I'm going to hide my uh, high poly in here. I'm just going to turn off solo. I'm just going to hide that. I'm going to turn back on this bulb here and select that and go to solo. So this is the one I was saying I don't really care how the topology is going to flow. So I'm going to let Z remesher take care of this. So I'm going to duplicate this item and then reproject the detail back on it. So going in here, I'm just going to hit duplicate. So now I have a duplicate. I'm just going to rename this low poly. Maybe I should name it head retop, so I know. And we're going to go into geometry. So under geometry and Z remesher, I'm going to leave adaptive on, and I'm going to set my target poly count to about 2. And I'm just going to hit Z remesh, but I'm also going to turn on polyframe so I can actually see what's going on. So you can see um, the polygons on here. Now you can see this is a little weird right here, but Z remesher will take care of all of that. And I'm just going to hit Z remesh. And this shouldn't take long because this object isn't really detailed. For the most part, for something like this, Z remesher is going to do a pretty decent job. And that's all I really needed to do is a decent job. A few more seconds. Get this in here. So I might go and change some of these parameters if, okay, so there's my low poly. Not bad. So let's see, the poly count is sitting at 2,219 polys. That's not bad, but I feel like I can get this down just a little bit more. So I'm actually going to put this on half and hit Z remesh again. There we go. And we at 1407. So this is starting to get really low poly. I don't really want to go any lower than this, so I'm going to leave this alone. And I'm just going to run with this. So you can see that the little spirals here, they're not actually matching. This is the issue I have with doing it inside of ZBrush, because you see how my edges are spiraling? They're actually not connecting all the way around for certain edges. So sometimes if I were to go back into Max and select an edge loop in here, it would just spiral all the way down, and that is a no-go. So let's say I want to fix that. What I can do, I'm going to undo this one time. I'm going to go into my brush palette, and I'm looking for Z-Mesher guides. So basically that message was just telling me I can change my draw size. Um, you can actually draw out your guides in here. So if I want this to flow a certain way, I can do that. So I'm going to go back into stroke, set my curve function. So I'm looking for this smooth button here. So this should smooth out some of my curve here. So if I want to change my draw size a bit, if I make it a little bit bigger, I'm going to turn dynamic off. So I don't want that on. You see my lines are more spaced out. So that didn't come out too well. So I'm just going to hit smooth to kind of smooth that out. But it's still getting that circular pattern. Just going to delete that one. Try this again. I need to turn on lazy mouse. Increase my lazy radius, just so it's easier to trace around this line here. There we go. Curve function, smooth. Because I really want my edges to flow out in a circular pattern. I don't want it to spiral out. So I'm going to do this again. Like so. Just smooth that out a little bit. And I want to direct how I want my edges to connect through. So I'm just going to draw an edge straight through like this. Just smooth that out. So I'm going to make that a little bit straighter. So actually go from here to here. There we go. It's a little bit straighter. And from down there to there. Whoa, that's really crooked. Let's try that again, shall we? All right. Now, I'm not too worried about this right here. I just kind of directing my my edge flow, how I want it to flow. Now it should take this into consideration and flow around just like this, all the way down. Might want to make one more going all the way around down here, like so. All right, so now we got the guides in there. It'll sort of use this pattern, and once I do the remesh again, it'll sort of follow this. So I'm actually going to turn off half, and I might want to adjust the curve strength a bit. I might have to redo this a few times. But I'm going to leave this alone for now and just hit remesh, see what happens. All right, so this came out a little bit better. So it's starting to have that edge pull a little bit better. See, this is that weird stuff I'm talking about, which is why I kind of shy away from using the Z remesher because it's never going to be perfect. Like this right here, like what happened? I'm going to undo that and increase the curve strength. Put it at 100. Do that again. And now it did some really weird stuff. It actually separated this into different polygroups, but you can see right here, it made a straight up triangle in here, and that's not going to fly. So I'm going to undo that, drop the curve strength down a bit, say about 80. Try that again. Still getting that weird pattern in here. Undo that. Let's try increasing the adaptive size. About 75. Do it again. It's still happening, but it's not that big a deal. Try it one more time. Yeah, it's not gonna listen to me. So yeah, this is the issue I have with Z remesher, which is why I will never do a character like this, because it's always gonna destroy the mesh. It's never gonna be perfect. So stuff like this is the reason why. Let's remesh that one more time with the same settings without undoing this. Okay, so that's a little better. I'll stick with this for now. And inside, eh, inside's the inside. I don't care about that. Not really gonna see it. So we're gonna stick with this. Whoa, set 2500. Let's drop that down to half again. All right. Looks like that didn't destroy anything. Uh, like I'm gonna have to drop this number down quite a bit. 70. So I'm looking for this number to drop. Here we go, 1649. Okay, that's reasonable. So now we have the low poly for this. I'm just gonna go back to my subtool. I'm gonna turn off solo. You can see we have this in here. Now we want to hide this because we don't just want this to affect the retop, the reprojection. So I have my low poly here and my high poly here. With my low poly selected, I'm going to go into projectile. Well, before I do that, I need to subdivide it. So hit solo just so I can see this. Go to geometry, subdivide this maybe 4 times. Let's do 5. And we're at 4,021 points. Let's actually subdivide this one more time. There we go. Then we're at 1,000,000. Because I actually did do quite a bit of detail on this bulb here at the top. So now we have that. We can go back, turn this off solo, go back to subtool, and we're going to reproject all again. This time I didn't really store a morph target because this part is, I really don't care how, if it messes up on this. And see, look, this looks like it came out 1-to-1. You can see if I turn this back to solo, whoa, what just happened? Oh, that was scary. For a moment, I thought it crashed there. Okay, so this is my low poly with subdivisions. So I can go back up and down my subdivision level and everything looks good. There we go. That's what we want. So that's done. And since I had that all crap scare, I'm going to save this right now. Yeah, buddy. All right, moving on. So I have my low poly here and my high poly there. That's done. And we have one more piece I want to do. Now this one, I really don't care how the edges flow. This is going to be the under part here, and yeah, I don't care how the edges flow. As long as they flow and they're low poly, I could give a crap. So this one, whatever the retop comes out to be, is what it's going to be. Because I really don't have any detail on this. When I made this, I made the base mesh and I brought in the ZBrush and I just kind of puffed up the volume slightly, but I really didn't put any detail on this. So this one, I really don't care how this comes out. So again, I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to rename this, what it says under strands. I'm just going to do retop so I know. And we're going to go to Z remesher under geometry. And I'm just going to leave it on its default settings and just hit remesh. Let's see what it did. It's stinking. I guess this one might take a little bit longer because there's like a bunch of holes everywhere in the geometry and it's like a really different pattern. It's not like a one solid piece like the bulb and the body were. This one just has random directions that everything is flowing in. So this one might take a little bit longer to complete the remesh, but this one should come out fairly simple. This doesn't need to be complicated, like I said, because it's not really a major mesh that's going to matter too much. Because the bulb is going to be over top of this, and this is going to be like more of a secondary, more of like a silhouette type of thing. So I really only care about the silhouette of this. Okay, that's fine for me. But it is 13,000 polys, which is a little high. So I'm actually going to drop this number in half. So reproject that, remesh that again. See, remesh it. It should take significantly less time than the last one. And it looks like it only went down to 15. Whoa, it went up. See, that's another thing I hate about the Z remesher. I literally told it to do half, and the poly count actually went up. So, yeah, it just completely ignored what I just told it to do. Thanks. So what I can do instead is change the target poly count. I'm just going to put that on 2 and Z remesh that. I'm looking for this number to drop. There we go, 9. Eh, probably can stand to do a little bit more. But you can kind of see in here, this kind of meshed together, so I might want to undo that a few times. But it looks like in my original mesh, this actually was meshed together, which isn't so bad because again, this is a secondary um, sort of thing, and I'm actually not going to reproject the detail on this. So I can probably get away with not fixing this, but since I know it's here, I'm actually bothering me now. So I think I'm just going to select this and just cut that out right there and sort of smooth this back down. Yeah, so this is really hard to see up in here. Smooth that down. And I'm going to delete hidden geometry. Now this button, you can find this under, let's see, maybe it's under subtools. No, it's under geometry. Modify topology, delete hidden. Here it is. So under geometry and modify topology, delete hidden is right here. But I've moved it over here just so I can quickly select it. So that geometry is done now. It's not there anymore. But I want to close this hole here, so I'm going to Dynamesh this again. And since I have it at a high resolution 128, it should close it without rebridging that gap. So we'll see. All right, so that looks like that came out nicely. I did the Dynamesh again, and it closed that little gap here. So I'm just going to smooth this down again. So that's what I wanted to happen, because I didn't want these to be connecting in here. So I'll have to do that the Z mesh again, Z remesher. So now that I know the target poly count that I want, so let's set this down to 1. Because this really doesn't need to be that high poly, because it's a minor detail. So let's go back and hit Z remesher again. And looking at the poly count, you can see the Dynamesh poly count is at 906,000 polys. So yeah, we really want to get this number down. So we don't want this much information, especially for something that's going to be secondary. Basically just using it as a silhouette to go underneath the jelly head. So that's almost done. So after this, I think what I'm going to do is going to start setting up the UV layout for this. 5,000 polys. That's cool. Let's see. Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with this 5K. That's a good model, and you can see none of this is touching. So this will actually work out. Got some weird stuff going on in here, but that's okay. Because again, this is secondary. Um, it's not going to be a focus, so I don't really care about this. So I'm going to leave this alone. So we retopped the jelly head, the strands underneath, and the body. So I'm going to actually get rid of these high poly scopes. Well, I'm going to save my file as is. Step 5, just so I still have everything, but everything is done. And then I'm going to go through and delete the high poly because I don't want to keep increasing the file size. So I'm going to delete that, and delete this. So now if I turn on solo mode and toggle, actually I don't need this anymore either because this was just displaying how many heads tall the character was. I'm going to delete that out as well. And I'm going to unhide everything. So now what we're left with is the low poly version. So if I were to go into polyframe, and I'm going to hit Shift D to go back to low poly, select this, Shift D, go back to low poly, select this, and that's already at its low poly state. Because I didn't want to reproject the detail on this because, like I said, I didn't have that much detail to begin with, so I didn't really care. So now we got a bunch of low poly objects in here. And you can see I don't have that many active points in here. So that's perfect.
So now we have completely low poly meshes, but I actually have the high poly of this. So if I hit D, well, hold D, and I can go back up, I have my scope, and I can sculpt in some more detail on back onto this body. But now I have my subdivision levels where I can go up and down. So this will make it so much easier to scope detail on, and when I go back and do my UVs, this will work out great. Now, when it comes to UVs, you can do them in ZBrush, and ZBrush will do a decent enough job for it. But I absolutely hate the lack of control that you get inside of ZBrush for UV layout. Like you have no control over what the UVs are going to do. You can draw in your guides and your all you want, but ultimately ZBrush is going to do whatever hell it wants to do. It's not going to come out like you want it. I can guarantee that. So what I like to do is I like to use a combination of ZBrush and a combination of Max. So like I'll start it off in ZBrush, bring it to Max, and then I'll replace it where I want on the UV layout. So I have my low poly with all my detail is done. So in the next tutorial, we're going to go over setting up UVs.